Welcome to Seattle Maritime Matters. I'm Ken Saunderson with the Seattle Propeller Club, and joining us today is Ian Sterling, who is the Public Information Officer with Washington State Ferries. Thanks for joining us today, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Good to be here.
Hey, why don't we start off with talking a little bit about the Washington State Ferry system? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, State Ferry system is actually the largest ferry system in North America. We carry in a normal year right around 25 million people, have 21 big ferry boats in the fleet, and go to a variety of destinations throughout Puget Sound, starting to the south at Point Defiance, and then all the way up to the San Juan Islands and into Canada on a normal year.
Wow, that's impressive. I think it's the largest ferry system in the United States.
It is the largest ferry system in the United States, second largest in the world if you look at number of vehicles carried.
And you're continuing to invest in the ferry system with new terminals like at Mukilteo, continuing work in downtown Seattle. Tell me about the investments that the ferry system is making.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting times to be at State Ferries because we just opened our first new ferry terminal in 40 years, and that's out in Mukilteo. And it just opened up a couple of months ago, and we're still putting the finishing touches on that terminal. But it's a big deal for us. The old terminal that was there was seismically vulnerable, built in the 1950s for 1950s traffic levels, and obviously we're not in the 1950s anymore, and so things have changed dramatically down there. We were actually able to build a brand new terminal just north of the existing terminal. And to do that, we took a piece of property that used to be an old military fuel pier, pulled about 3,000 creosote laced piles out of Puget Sound, so great from an environmental standpoint, and built this beautiful new terminal that's now survive an earthquake much better and serve people for the next 50, 60, maybe even 100 years. It has some safety improvements and just some efficiency improvements as well. Things like overhead loading. So passengers no longer have to walk on and off the car deck at the ferry. They get onto the passenger deck like they do at most of our more modern terminals. And so that's a great thing to see happen out there. The other thing we have going kind of simultaneously is arguably the biggest ferry terminal project that we've ever done, and that's rebuilding Coleman Dock while it continues to operate. So it's a little bit like remodeling your house while you're still living in it. So it's going to take a little while longer. We've got another 3 years of construction out there, but already about a third of the new terminal building is built. And again, this will be much stronger setup in case there's an earthquake. If the Nisqually quake had gone even for a few more seconds, our engineers estimate that facility wouldn't have been usable afterwards. So it'll be great when that comes online fully. And again, it continues to operate while all this is going on. So it's quite the challenge.
And in addition to those investments, you're also making new investments in vessels using cutting edge technology. Talk a little bit more about what the ferry system's up to there.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is electrification, which is a fancy way of saying that we're going to take the boats and take the fleet and convert over to battery hybrid power, essentially. So sort of like a Prius, right? This is stuff that's happening right now. Or very, very soon in the future. In the next couple of years, you'll have a chance to ride on a state ferry that's powered by electric motors, electricity, rather than diesel fuel. We're the biggest consumer of diesel fuel in the state of Washington. And you can imagine that we burn through a lot of it, and there's a big price tag attached to that. So for taxpayers and for passengers, this is a great thing. The boats will be quieter, they'll be cleaner, it'll help out marine life theoretically, and it'll pay for themselves depending on the price of diesel fuel over time. So we're excited to get going on that. The kickoff for that will be the Wenatchee, which is one of our jumbo Mark II vessels, the biggest vessels in the fleet at over 400 feet long. They're currently powered by 4 giant diesel engines, basically locomotive engines that have been adapted for marine use, produce about 16,000 horsepower. They're the biggest gas hogs in the fleet because of that. So some of those engines will be going away and being replaced by battery packs. The other kind of cool part that comes along with that is we're going to use a robotic charging arm system. And nobody's ever seen one of those, right? But the arm will come up and plug in at the dock. Ferries are unique in marine vessels, and they go back and forth and have to stop at each end to offload and unload passengers and then load them back on. And that gives you time to quick charge. So in the next couple of years, the Wenatchee will be converted over to be an electric hybrid vessel, and hopefully that will be followed by the rest of our larger vessels. And then we're also starting new builds as well. The state is in desperate need really of new ferry boats. And we are funded to do at least one of those here going forward. And so the next couple of years, we'll get to work on that. And you'll see brand new boats coming out that have that same technology that are capable of running on both diesel and on electric power whenever possible.
And also that's very cool. You guys are also a large employer and provide a number of great family wage jobs. Talk about the great careers that are available at Washington State Ferries.
Yeah, we have about 1,900 employees, depending on the time of the year, and the vast majority of those are out in the fleet or at terminals. And yeah, it's sort of a unique situation where, most places that you go these days, whether it's tech industry or wherever, I think I read someplace the typical job only lasts about 2 years now. And State Ferries is one of those rare instances where you can still go in and work your way up a career path and really stay there for 40 years, 50 years, your entire career if you want. And really, you can't complain about the office either. You're out there on the water all day, right? And there's a lot of different things that you can do for State Ferries, from the engine room, and that's sort of a hidden world that people don't usually know exists. But there's a whole world down there with just a few people that keep those giant machines moving back and forth across the water. Of course, there's the captains and the mates and all of that people know about and maybe see a little more often or realize are there. And then, of course, all the shoreside stuff, from directing cars onto the boats and taking tickets and, all of the logistics that go with that. So there's a lot of different things that people can do. And yes, we are hiring right now. You can go to the State Ferries website and look at work for us, and you'll see what's available at any given time.
Wow, very exciting opportunity. And hey, ferries are just a huge part of the overall maritime industry. And I can tell you're passionate about the ferries, but talk a bit about your passion for the maritime industry overall.
I think it's just sort of a neat time to join with all this innovative stuff that's happening. And I think a lot of people don't realize that these careers even exist. 100 years ago in Seattle, that wasn't the case, right? A lot of people knew about this. And as the tech industry came to dominate, look, there's nothing wrong with the tech industry at all. But I think that this sort of fell off the radar for a little bit. And so it's a real challenge sometimes to go out and find employees. And so we're aggressively recruiting folks, and of course, working with you and other people to try and get the word out that these great careers do exist. And they're really kind of the backbone of Seattle.
Maritime industry really is the backbone of Seattle. We often say we put the C in Seattle. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much.
No problem. And thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.